Let's be honest, climate change is a huge problem. It affects every part of every day of our lives, yet we are the ones to continue to contribute to its effects. One of the major ways America does this is through its heavy reliance on fossil fuel for energy. It causes droughts in California, flooding in Louisiana, and Hawaii is still on fire, yet the promotion of renewable energy sources offered have major flaws, making them unreliable. Like solar energy, it takes up a lot of space and has a very low output for its size. Wind, hydro, and geothermal, while great, are determined by the location, making them unreliable. And biomass adds to the carbon footprint. While it's less, it's still adding more than it is to taking away. So we need a reliable source of energy that lowers the carbon footprint with a large output. So I ask, why not nuclear? Okay, that's why. But let's talk about this. Good afternoon. I'm Murph, and my wicked problem deals with nuclear energy. This is what I'm going to be going over, and I already gave my intro. So let me be more clear. My wicked problem asks, how do we promote the mass use of nuclear energy while overcoming the public mistrust and the inherent dangers in the United States? But before I break the statement down, let me give you a quick overview of what nuclear energy is. Simply, it's just a chain reaction. Think about pushing over dominoes, but on a submolecular level. The chain reaction creates heat, which turns the water into steam. The steam turns the turbines, the generator, and creates electricity, which means that all the smoke that comes out of a nuclear plant is just water vapors. But why is that important? Well, the reason is today people do not trust it. While nuclear energy was a global affair in its creation, the first application was during World War II. We all know. While the atomic warhead played a pivotal role in ending the war, it also started the Cold War. But what made people more skeptical was the nuclear disasters with Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and most recently Fukushima. But nuclear energy is affected by the media like The Simpsons. America, being the fourth largest country and also having the largest economy in the world, is pushing for sustainability, especially in an economy that is heavily gauged on fossil fuels. Even the eco-friendly Tesla relies on fossil fuel power plants. This is because over 75% of energy comes from fossil fuels. This includes 60% in electricity. But being sustainable is very expensive, especially for the middle class. But our daily lives are very expensive, as you will see on this chart. So how do we fix it? Do we cut back on energy? Yeah, that would be ideal, but will we? No. I mean, take me for example. I drive a diesel car because it's cheaper. I continue to leave the lights on because I forget, and I have a huge addiction on Amazon. And I know I'm not alone, and there are extreme more cases, especially in America. So let's be realistic. Why not support the use of nuclear energy? Moving down to the influences, the things that influence the nuclear industry. Well, first it's going to be socially, the people first, because without trust, industries in America would not have survived. It's one of the first things I learned in marketing because people don't really care about the facts. They care about how they feel, which is why it's very important to win their hearts. Which is why the next thing is the economy. The first thing I learned in economics is when people have more money, they spend more. When they have less, they spend less. So when they have less money, directly or indirectly, due to the fossil fuel industry, that means that there's not enough money to keep moving, which is not enough to fund the nuclear industry from the political standpoint, which is the final influence for the nuclear industry. It influences it through the political lobbyists, aka corporations, which can support or not support the nuclear industry through the laws. And whoever controls the laws in America controls the direction America goes. I wanted to talk about misconceptions before I went to potential approaches. So first, I wanted to talk about costs. Yes, it's a high cost to start a nuclear plant, about 10 years, $9 billion, but the return on investment is significantly higher to a point where nuclear energy is very cheap for the consumer, which brings me to jobs. There are plenty of jobs in nuclear plants. I know a lot of people worry about it taking over coal, but there's more jobs in America, which takes me down to the next one, energy, clean energy. With the sketch that I showed about The Simpsons, where it had a little green smoke. The smoke is just water vapors. It's just water vapors, and it's usually reused. And my final point is going to be the misconception. It's going to be the materials, the uranium, the raw materials. Well, um, there was a report talking about we only had 90 years worth of uranium on Earth, but there's been new discoveries on being able to reuse the nuclear waste, turning the uranium into petroleum. And we only use about 5% of it, or 5% of the energy from that. So that means that there's plenty of energy left. Um, we still haven't even went into discovering. We are still talking about fusion. I mean fission. Now we just need to go into fusion. And if we go into fusion, there's a whole nother topic which can still bring up more about clean energy. Now let me talk about potential approaches. Potential approaches to solve this problem. Well, the three I'm thinking of it will be dealing with the human factor. It deals with being transparent, especially with the open source and being able to see information. It's very difficult to decipher. So some of the key things we most people need to know across the news network is very hard for people to understand. So transparency is important. It's not really meant to build trust, but to ensure that the policies and regulations are followed in an effort to ensure the safety of the people of America. The second thing will be the scientific and technological advancement. This is not just needed to protect us, but ensure that we continue to grow to eventually reach the fusion reactor era, similar to the first Iron Man movie. But finally, we need to gain bipartisan support. We need to approach it from always trying to gain bipartisan support, because without that support, we cannot grow. But this is a key quote that I got from Elon Musk from a TED Talk he had, where he talked about the importance of continuing to grow um, beyond just the potential approaches. Continuing to grow is very key. He talks about how in '69 the space program was retired, and people think that technology is going to automatically improve. It doesn't. It ends up degrading. Very similar to the pyramids and the Mayan ruins. So how do we execute this? As I said earlier, over 75% of fossil fuels is the energy source in America. So we need to flip this to at least having 60% be nuclear energy. So how do we do this? Well, we educate on nuclear energy vocationally and institutionally. It's not enough just to go to the institutions. We have to go to the tech schools, vocational practices, even in high school. Nuclear energy is important. It's not difficult to learn. It's just making sure we take the time to explain it effectively so everyone can understand it in the most simplest terms. Second, we need to share the advantages of nuclear energies economically. It can lower our inflation rate. We are too reliant on fossil fuels. We saw what it cost through the supply chain over 2020 to 2022. So if we can change our energy sources, that can lower the cost from the businesses, which will lower the cost to the consumers. Next, we need to make sure we are communicating to all generations. That includes communicating to them through the media, and that is through the social media, through the commercial media, and through the direct media. Next, we need to leverage technology. If it's going to be through the AR to the AI system, so we can have people work very far away from the nuclear plants, to the quantum computers, where we can have predictions, use the system effectively, use what we have now to be able to leverage what we can do in the future. Next is the push for new discoveries. While we're leveraging technology, that's what we know now. But the new discoveries, well, that's the definition of science. The biggest push will be to finally understand and be able to harness fusion. Fusion. While we know fission, we need to reach fusion so we can truly harness the power of the sun. Next, we have to lobby for good. Yes, lobbying has a negative connotation. I get it, but I know lobbyists, and to be honest, it is something that has to be done, because if you're not lobbying, someone else is, so you're not being heard. So we have to lobby for good. And finally, we need to become allies with our competitors. Yes, this is not lobbying, this is something totally different. While the nuclear industry is something I'm working on, I'm not trying to get rid of the fossil fuel industry or even cost them more money. But if we have nuclear industry in America, we can use the fossil fuel industry to focus on going into space, because that is the only energy source that we are able to use to get around space. So become allies with our competitors. So, in conclusion, over the inherent dangers of nuclear energy, while there are inherent dangers, and most of the disasters happen through negligence, the bottom line is it's a danger we can control compared to climate change. Um, being a realist, it is the best option compared to the middle class who are constantly working 9 to 5, who are usually just worried about their day-to-day problems. And while they may see the climate changing, all they can worry about is what they're doing today, what they're doing next year, their vacations. And the easiest thing to do is to do something where they have to make the least amount of decisions while also being guaranteed a job that's covered, cheaper bills, and more money in their pockets to be able to spend on the things that they want. So when it comes down to it, it's not just about energy, it's about improving the Americans' way of life. Thank you. I'm Murph, and thank you for listening to my TED/Tribe Talk. Have a good day.